It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, my friends, it's an interesting week. I know I say that every week, but this week we're going to walk through it together. We're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's MLK Day, and that is where we're putting our focus. I go through MLK's chart. I also read from Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which isn't always about fighting actual battles, and it's good philosophy for life. Plus, I have a very special guest on my podcast, Brandon Windsor, who wrote the book Good Love, a novel. It's a fun rom-com, but we talk about the process. Brandon has been a client of mine. I was with him at when he just had this idea that he wanted to do it, and we checked the transits and been supporting him on his journey. And I'm very proud to have him on. And we talk about his book. We talk astrology. He has some questions for me. If you're a patron, you'll get to see the video of that up in the Patreon this week. Plus, you'll get the video presentation of Martin Luther King Jr.'s astrology chart. That'll be up in a patron-only podcast as well. I've been telling you for years, you got to bring your energy inside. You got to hold your consciousness. Don't let yourself be manipulated. If you're a patron, you know I've been going over all of this. I talk a little bit about TikTok going forward, not really the astrology, but where I'm going to go with it. I'm not sure how long I'm going to stay there. I've put my focus on this podcast heavily since 2023. Mostly because it just once the people from Facebook found TikTok, it just wasn't fun anymore. I don't believe Facebook has purchased Meta. A lot of the people saying, "Oh, the thought bubble," that was actually there before the shutdown. That's not new. And the connect with your Facebook friends, not new. There was some interesting stuff about connecting to WhatsApp when it came to promotions and things. So there may be some partnerships going on. I don't know. We'll see. But regardless, I don't know. I have so much else to do, and TikToks, they take time. So I'd rather write. I have the Awake Space Astrology magazine. I have a lot of patrons I need to take care of. We've got a class coming up called How to Find Your Side Gig Using Your Astrology. So, things like that. That's what I've been up to. And TikTok, it was a great ride. And I had a really, really fun final TikTok live. And they were not handing out content violations or community guideline violations. So I went off the rails. I'll put that up in the Patreon. I'm still trying to. I had to record the screen because I couldn't download it. So we'll see. I still am not able to download it. If I can download it, I'll put up the original file. If I can't, you'll get the screen recording. It's pretty funny for those of you who were there. You know what I'm talking about. So my plan is to help in service. I warned people, regardless of administration, we were looking at forced conformity, which is, the word that starts with F and ends with M. Thanks to the patrons, this podcast is here for you, and I've been going live a lot in the Patreon. Community matters, and I've been building community for years, knowing this year was going to be chaotic, regardless of who was at the helm, because the crew on deck is a bit out of order. Let's put it that way. I know it's easy to get emotional in times like these or scared in times like these. The world is unstable. We have listeners from 78 countries. This isn't just about the United States. We are interconnected economically. We're interconnected politically, geopolitically, through trade, and through the internet. I had the great honor of seeing the internet unveiled in 1988, way back. That first, here it is to the public. And I was the only humanities student invited to my professor's house. He had a handful of engineers because he was an engineering professor. There were a couple business students, international business students, and then there was me. I was also the only woman in the room. Go figure. I was 19. And I wasn't even in any of his classes, but we used to drink coffee and shoot the breeze in the coffee shop. And he would want to hear perspectives, right? He was an older guy. He was in his late 50s, which seemed ancient when I was 19. And he would say, I like hanging out with young people to keep my perspective fresh. I get to see the world through their eyes. And that was a pretty wise thing. I like hanging out with younger people and hearing their thoughts too, and seeing where they're coming from. And he didn't even need to be a professor. He and his brother owned a satellite company back in the 80s. Like, how crazy is that? So, anyway, when he brought out his big old laptop, which was impressive, it had an orange and silver screen. If you're older, you know what I'm talking about. If you're younger, look it up. And connected it to a modem. And of course, we didn't know what that was. And it made these ungodly sounds. I was just like, ugh, it made my teeth clench. And it was funny because the engineers were all trying to figure out what was going on and how it worked and talking amongst themselves. The minute the orange and silver screen came on, the business students were like, monetization, how much did it cost, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, why am I here? And then a bulletin board service pulled up. Didn't know what that was. It's kind of like a message board. And there was a guy in Moscow talking to a guy in Washington, D.C., talking to a guy in Beijing. And back in 1988, that was impossible. Nobody was talking to each other. Okay. And they were talking about their favorite beer, which is the Roman question, right? Like I was like, whoa. And I looked at him and I was like, is this real? Like right now? Are they really doing this right now? Because that was inconceivable, guys. And he said, yes. And I looked at him, my jaw dropped. I mean, how? How are they talking to each other? And he was like, well, it's the internet. And he explained it very briefly. And I looked at him and my eyes were so wide. And I was still like, my mind was blown. And I looked at him and went, this could change the world if we could just get to understand each other and communicate. He said, yes, Laurie, that's why you're here. Remember this. Remember the internet because you'll change the world with it. I was like, okay. In the coming weeks and months, vilifying technology is going to happen at rapid pace. Technology is not the problem. It's the dickheads behind it. Okay, understand this. With the internet, you can meet people from around the world and get to know them as human beings. When in your lifetime did you think millions of Americans would willingly learn another language and be willing to listen to people from another country and another culture about how they do things over there instead of trying to evangelize the American way? Man, I didn't think I'd ever see that in my lifetime. Do not allow people to villainize the internet. That puts you at a disadvantage. There are apps that do great harm. There are apps that do no harm that are owned by people who do great harm. And then there are apps that come at it from a place of service and connection. Use your discernment this week. Okay. Don't fall for the trap that will disenfranchise you. Okay. So, all right. I think you're going to enjoy this podcast. There's a little bit of everything. And I think it's most important that we remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who gave us a lot of wisdom to deal with times like these. All right. Grab your matcha, grab your tea, take a moment for yourself, take a breath. Nice deep one, not in your chest. Give a good belly breath. Take a deep breath in. That's it. Let it out. Okay. Let's get on with the podcast. All right. Well, we've got an interesting episode today because I'm probably not going to talk about the things you want me to talk about. I've been asked, did I do a deep dive on the inauguration? And I actually did it, not a deep dive, but I took a look at the chart back in June and kind of closed the app and went, no, I don't want to look at that. And probably not for the reasons you're thinking. It just is a volatile day. It's an interesting day. It's weather. I said it would be like maybe windy or wet. That's precipitation, which could be snow. It's not just rain. And there were surprises involved, So I've said in the past, I wasn't convinced there was an inauguration for whatever reason. Still don't know. We'll find out today. I can't say if there is an inauguration of a particular person who's going to treat it like Voldemort, who shall not be named. He's not going to be there long. I have looked at those transits of that person's chart over and over. And in fact, medium Matilda and I were on the phone. And I actually went through my process with her. I said, this is what I do. If this was my client and I actually like this person, this is what I would say. And one of the things I said is there's people in your circle. These are people you have really, you think you have strong agreements with. They're actually not doing you any favors. You're not going to be able to pivot the way you normally pivot. You're not going to be able to use your genius, quote unquote, because of that. His Uranus is being squared by Venus and Saturn. You could be making some bad financial decisions or a bad deal, and normally where you have good fortune, like there's some kind of communication that's going to diminish that. We saw that yesterday on the 19th. So that's all I'm going to say about it. Okay. To the people who are coming here from TikTok to get the skinny, who haven't listened to my podcast at all, and you're just coming for gotchas and stuff, whatever. Okay. I couldn't care less. I'm here to talk to the people who want to learn more about energy, how to surf the cosmic tide. And what I'm going to do to support that is less about the outer world events. And we're going to focus on some inner world events. Okay. Because we do have the Venus-Saturn conjunction going on. And that is some real freaking magic. Real magic. Where you can distill your hopes, dreams, and aspirations into a crystallized form, like make it physical, make it real. And to kind of talk about that, I invited one of my clients, Brandon Windsor. Brandon Windsor, who just wrote the book Good Love, okay, the Good Love novel. And it's a rom-com. And Brandon is a TV writer, and he came to me during the strike. He had an idea. He wasn't sure about it. His life was not operating the way he wanted it. And I was doing a consultation reading with him, and he just happened to have some great transits for taking on the project of writing a novel. And we talk about that later on in the podcast. And it's a great book, by the way, and not just because he's my client. I'm very, very picky about the books I utilize what's left of my eyesight on, and it's a great read. So it's super fun. And we talk about that. We talk astrology. So we have that on the podcast. And why did I have him on? Because he realized a vision. Venus conjunct Saturn. He realized a vision. So that Venus conjunct Saturn is a very interesting transit. So there's that. I'm also going to do a little bit of reading from The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's actually a philosophy book more than anything else. It's not as much about fighting as you might think. And then, of course, I think we all need to put our attention to something more important than the drama out in the world. And that is, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's MLK Day. And I want to start the podcast out with, and I'll probably have already done so, with this beautiful quote. And it is, "May I stress the need for courageous, intelligent, and dedicated leadership, leaders of sound integrity, leaders not in love with publicity, but in love with justice, leaders not in love with money, but in love with humanity, leaders who can subject their particular egos to the greatness of the cause." Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So there we go. May we all hold that quote in our hearts and our hands. Before I get going with what the rest I'm going to talk about, I just want to tell you a quick story about the first time I found out about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was in kindergarten, and they played his on an old film projector. He wrote. Sorry. When I was in kindergarten, they played us a film reel of Dr. Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, and I was enamored, and I was in love with this man, with his whole heart speaking. And I thought, I have that same dream. I wanted people to get along. I don't like fighting. I have a Libra moon in the 11th house, and was so enamored with this man who spoke of love and spoke of seeing us all, being able to see each other as human beings. And when school was out, I was so excited to tell my mother about this man. And this would have been 1974. And when she picked me up from school, I said, "Mama, Mama, Mama, I want to meet this man. His name is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he has a dream, and it's the same one I have." And my mom got very serious, and she said, "Oh, Laurie, I'm so sorry, but they killed him." And I said, no, because somehow, I don't know if they had mentioned it or I had missed it because I was so excited to hear about this man. And my heart just broke, and I was inconsolable as a 5-year-old, because when we're small children, we listen with our heart space, right? We don't need another one. We need to remember what the great teachers have taught us. We don't need another Mr. Rogers. We don't need another Dr. King. We need to remember the lessons and the wisdom that they shared with us so we can walk in step together to create the world we want to live in. And sometimes when things seem lost, when some things seem irreparable, when some things seem dismal and gray, it might feel hard to step up to that. And yet it is a privilege to lament and luxuriate in despair when so many people are just trying to survive. it's important to remember that each one of us has the ability to rise into our greatest purpose, right? Each one of us has the ability to make a difference. And in order to do that, we have to do that from the inside. So that's what this podcast is about. Again, I'm going to have Brandon Windsor on the show. You'll see that. I'm going to put some clips up on YouTube for that episode because we had a great time and he shares a lot of wisdom about making the most out of some of your hardest times. That's what he was doing when he was writing his book. The next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to, of course, do patron shout outs. We got a bunch of new patrons this week. As you know, the show is 100% listener supported. And the other thing we've got going on is I'm going to read the headlines. We've got the interview, and then I'm going to read you a favorite bit of mine from The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And if you're wondering, what does that have to do with astrology? Well, remember, astrology reflects everything. And there's some very valuable information in that book. It is a philosophy book, and astrology is also philosophy. So we'll talk about that later on in the podcast. But first, let's take a look at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s chart, because I think that's the astrology we should be looking at today. I thought we'd be sharing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s chart today. I think it's a far more important thing to look at and to remember today of all days, as it is MLK Day. And I think celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and legacy is something that could uplift and inspire us all. I'm sharing the chart for those of you who are in my Patreon. You'll get this segment up as a patron-only goodie. But we're looking at Dr. Martin Luther King's chart. He had a Taurus rising, a Capricorn sun, and a Pisces moon. And I think it's really interesting that Dr. King's moon was at 19 degrees, which is very, very close to where Saturn and Venus are today. They're sitting at around 17 degrees of Pisces. His moon at 19 degrees, his Venus at 10. His Mercury in Aquarius, sitting proudly in the 10th house, gave him those wonderful oratory skills that gave him a way to move past social boundaries. He managed to get people beyond his own circle and his own social status to listen to him. Paired with his Pluto in Cancer in the 3rd house, he had a powerful, resonant speaking voice. Much like Mr. Rogers, his 11th house held some Pisces going on. That's the moon and Venus. His teachings of love and building community. He wasn't a perfect man. Everybody can talk about his foibles and his flaws. And yet, we know that his message still rings out as truth today. He was an inspiration. And not just in the time he lived, but today to many of us. But it's important not just to make him an icon, which he is, but to remember with that sun in the 9th house in Capricorn, he was a world teacher. And his message can teach us still today to persevere. He had Mars in Gemini, and I thought it was kind of funny. It's at 21 degrees. And no wonder, as a little girl, I was in love with him from the heart space. Like, I wanted to meet him and give him a hug because I love people and I wanted people to get along. And I could hear his message ring right all the way through my soul. And again, I was so devastated when I found out he wasn't alive anymore. But his message can live within us. His words can still give us courage and inspiration and fuel us to build community, because it's in community that our greatest strengths are found. Community is something we talk about all the time, but we often don't understand how it's built. He just didn't decide one day to stand up because he'd had enough. He was a very educated man, and he worked with many other people and educated many together to make the civil rights movement possible. He lived through many dark days, and yet he left us so many wise words to share. As he said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. I feel that's a poignant statement today. His Uranus in the 12th house in Aries made him almost a vessel for the words of wisdom that came from the cosmos, or in his words, from his God. Remember, he was a pastor, and he had such great authority. His Jupiter in Taurus in the 12th as well, giving him a deep spiritual connection. And he was elevated in death. Not everybody with Jupiter in the 12th gets assassinated. I have some more quotes. And this one is for him because, like I said, we look to these teachers and we think we need another one, but each one of them has told each of us that we can do the same as them. And here's what Dr. Martin Luther King had to say about this. Everyone has the power for greatness, not for fame, but greatness, because greatness is determined by service. Here's another one. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And this is the quote from the I Have a Dream speech that made me jump for joy, because I wanted to meet those little children and be friends. I had a favorite book in kindergarten. It was called Come Over to My House, Come Over to Play, and it showed children from all over the world and how they lived and what games they played. And I wanted to go visit so I could learn about them. But here is his quote. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We may seem a lot further from that than we would like to be. But it's up to each of us to make that nation possible. And I will remind you with this last quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. The silence of the good people is more dangerous than the brutality of the bad people. To be silent, to do nothing, is to be complicit. And there are many ways to speak. We can speak with our art. We can speak with our music. We can speak through teaching. We can speak through our actions. Each one of us has the ability for greatness, and greater still when we join in community. I think these are good thoughts for a day like today. Okay. We're going to do some patron shout outs. All right, it is time for our patron shout outs because this podcast is 100% listener supported. And we've got a lot of new people over in the last couple of days, especially since the Tiki Talkie went dark and then resurrected again. I'm not sure how long I'm going to stay on TikTok. I'm perfectly fine making entertainment, but from the beginning, I was trying to help people through some very challenging times. A little later in the podcast, I'll talk about my final TikTok live. I don't think I'll do anymore, but was afflicting the comfortable there and entertaining the supporters. All right, let's give a shout out to Lisa, Denise, Jennifer, April, Danelle, Gina, Meredith, McKenna, Carolyn, Griselda, Laura, Haley, Mama Lisa, Mouse, Brooke, Amanda, Meg, Heather, Tootie, Kim, Christy, Leslie, April, Deb, Maria, Gabby, Alexis, Holly, Aaron, Zoexy, Zoxy, or Zoe. I'm not sure. You'll have to let me know. Brianna, DN Cord, 611, Mike, Danielle, Madison, Chelsea, Jennifer, Trista, Haley, Twiggy, Patricia, Isabel, Christina, Janet, Connie, Anne, Naomi, Ashton, Amy, Lauren, Raquel, Catherine, KS, CR, Daniel, Chrissy, Valentina, Kama 3, Kelly, Lindsay, Nene, Lunar, Rihanna, Corin, Sheep Mystic, Michelle, Tara, Law and Coffee and Family 247, Emma, Amber, Shirley, Carlotta, Kay, Courtney, Sheila, L, Honor, Holly, Gemini Moon, Maisie, Richenda, Jacqueline, Lauren, Felicia, Kimberly, Aaron, Yaya, Senny Wenny, Penny. That's funny, Senny Wenny. And then we got a Penny. Natalie, Stephanie, Yvonne, Ilvana, or Ilvania, Whiskey, Roslyn, Joanne, Taylor B., Margaret, Nicole, Origami Moon, Tennille, Danielle, Nikki, Mari, Jessica, Chelsea, Claudia, Nina, Alexandra, Melia, Debbie D., but not as in Downer, Hoboy Jim, Cass, Lauren, Karen, Natalie, Elizabeth, Estelle, Audrey, Sammy, Jen, Kristen, Jennifer, Liz BT, Jacqueline, Beaks021, Mayra, Nicole, Michelle, Suzanne, Brianna, Keat, Miranda, Keela, Jay, Maggie, Heather, Natalie, Taryn, Desiree, Ortiz, Sarah, or Sarah, Siege, Laura, Claudia, Beck, Gustavo, Melanie, Valkyrie, Destiny, Grace, Melinda, Jen, Jennykins, Nicole, and Chelsea. I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully, I don't lose my place. Okay. Wow. Thank you for being patrons. It's so good to have all of you here. Make sure you check the posts where it says find your stuff. Okay. Scroll around. Patreon has a lot of stuff on there. I've been going live a lot on the Patreon. And of course, I'll be live today on Monday after I get a little bit of sleep after putting out the podcast, and we'll be in community together. All right. I like to sandwich the headlines into the middle of the podcast because I don't want to bum you out at the beginning and I want to leave you on a high on the end. So I'm going to run through what I think is going to be in the headlines this week. This is something we keep track of in the Patreon chat. Let's see. And I write these in the Awake Space Astrology magazine. Mm. Let's see. Hmm. Oh, wait. There we go. Alrighty. Speaking of the Awake Space Astrology magazine, I got to get this thing written for February because it's another crazy month. I know every single month this year is nuts. It's just nuts, I tell you. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Okay. I need to get back. Let's see. All right. The moon is in Libra. As I record this, it's actually trucking right along, but it's in Libra from the 19th to the 21st. So today is the 20th. All right, the moon is in Libra. Everything in balance is unbalanced. Things get wobbly and out of focus. Nothing is on schedule. We have big windstorms, typhoons, monsoons, freezing rain, freezing fog, etc. with lightning and hail. This could also be like snow nados and thunder snow, things like that. Infrastructure damage could happen with those storms, and this is global, not just in the United States. Air traffic disruptions due to labor strikes and contract negotiations, mechanical failures of aircraft, both civilian and military, accidents on roads and in the air due to wind, weather, and mechanical failures, public protests increase, fighting on the ground, excessive use of force in play, that's global. Satellites and communications disruptions, internet failures, and or technical issues in general. Big police activity or military National Guard called into action to quell domestic unrest. That is global. Noted violence in urban centers, increased aggression or expansion of conflict concerning Lebanon, Iran, Israel, and Palestine. It could also be Syria, etc. Supreme Court or other high court judges, global or international court in the news could see a landmark ruling. ICC or ICJ issue new rulings and or warrants, surprise announcement, decree, or government act that shocks or surprises a nation. This is global. New information leaked about U.S. officials and or financial matters to do with an elected official. Public violence, mass shooting, stabbing, or an issue with domestic violence. Politicians start changing their tune, rhetoric changes, and propaganda spins in a different direction. Issues to deal with international organizations, the Commonwealth, etc. Could be the United Nations, NATO, WHO, any of the international organizations. Air traffic disruptions, limited airspace or airspace closed. Global. Global conflict escalates, could see action in Persian Gulf, Red Sea, or in Iraq, Syria, etc. Don't get your hopes up. Those are just what I see happening in the headlines. January 21st through the 24th, the moon in Scorpio is intense. Conflict escalates. Secrets are revealed and problems get out of hand. Big weather with wind, snow, ice, rain, or fires grow due to increasing wind. Rising sea levels impact island nations. Borders see violence. Poland, Belarus, Hungary, Georgia, the country, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, India, Pakistan, US, Mexico, Eastern Europe in general. Cold case solved or missing persons found or a high profile case takes a nation's attention. Global. Internet disruptions, payment gateway failures, hacking, and or ransomware. We could hear about graveyards, cemeteries, catacombs, and mortuaries, waterborne and foodborne illness, toxic waste, sewage and sewers, water quality at stake, poisoned groundwater. Suicides increase beyond the norm. Huge flood or blizzard. It could be ice, it could be rain, it could be a flood, it could be a blizzard. Any of that. It's a precip, okay? Issues with oil refineries and gas pipelines, platforms, oil production and or pumping, radiation, or issues due to an explosion or bombing. Global, don't freak out. Big accident or crash, accident, floods, power outage, maritime accidents, attacks or piracy, insurgency by sea. Issues in Persian Gulf, Red Sea, Straits of Hormuz, and Suez Canal, Mediterranean expansion of conflict potential. Biden and or Putin could face political challenge. That's an old one because Biden won't be in political office at that time, so that's not giving you hope. I just should have put Putin for that. Biden might have a health crisis though at that point. Increased tensions with USA and Russia, assassination attempts of world leaders, political candidates, and people of note. That's global. Big information leaks revealed or serious espionage allegations, issues with refugees, especially in the Mediterranean, mass accident, loss of life, or terrorist attack, accident at theme park, or a crush at a sporting event. This is global. Food poisoning and or illness, trucking or transportation accident, rail, shipping, etc. Could see a cargo ship sink or a Navy ship. Big boat. And then, let's see. All right, January 24th through the 26th, we see the moon in Sagittarius. Lies exposed, journalists under review or investigated, and espionage exposed. We could see forest fires, bushfires, lightning strikes, arsons. Fires go out of control because of wind. My eye is on Australia, but also Southern California with that. Be careful out there. Unseasonable temperatures or temperature swings, windstorms, ice storms, transportation accidents, international travel disrupted. Iran, Israel, issue with Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Persian Gulf, Central Asian states. Conflict escalates. By the way, when I talk about that whole conflict in that area is it's very tense there. International disputes increase, truces and ceasefires fail, wars break out in regions with tensions. United Nations, NATO, EU, and other international organizations have a crisis. Supreme Court justices in the headlines or high courts in other countries. All governments destabilized, issues with communication, internet, satellites, military command under strain. Massive storm or issues to do with a massive storm could be a hurricane or something that starts at sea and goes through more than one nation. Big corporation makes market moving announcements, stocks and money markets, crypto, unstable, financial correction. So it could bounce down. But it could also, something that's low could go high as well. It's volatile. Accidents with missile and or satellite launches. Big international accident involves either people from many countries or it involves a border crossing. Maritime incidents, accidents, and issues with ports. Religious leaders and or organizations under fire. Journalists, broadcasters, or news agency under the microscope. Announcements from religious leader, riots, protests, mass violence, political violence, nationalism, right-wing and left-wing clash globally. Keeping my eye on Europe as much as I am the United States. And that's what we've got going this week. It's a very volatile time, guys. There's a lot going on, but we're going to keep our focus on what we can do with what we got in the here and now, staying present, okay? Don't let yourself be manipulated, all right? All righty. Do some patron shout outs, and then we'll listen to the interview with Brandon Windsor, and then I'll give you a final send-off. All right, we've got another round of patron shout-outs. Remember, without you, there is no podcast, so big thanks to all of you. All right, we have Rashanta, Noli, Angela, MM, Rochelle, DB, Shelley, Lisa, Linsberry, Chanel, Chanel? Or, oh, it's with an exclamation point. Shauna, sorry. Jojo, Lisa, Crystal, Dana, Jessica, Jennifer, Jess, Violet, Cassidy, Sarah, Tuna Meltdown, Molly, Terry Anderson, Andy, Cece, Caleb, Big Gabby, Jana, Hez, Carrie, Dia, Iris, Callie, Sienna, Desha, Jen, Mackenzie, Lady Grant, Megan, Gloria, Lori, Jasmine, Kristen, Jordan, Celia, Shannon, Ayla, Olivia Wrights, Norley, or Nori Dior, Elizabeth, Lindsay, Kate, Tracy, Christina, Tanea, Lisa, Dreen Nicole, Bethany, Madison, Ari, Sarah, Ebony, Tracy, Marie, Martini Glass, Kayla, Femme Noir Trader, Bridget, Evan, Alana, Anne, or Annie, Ciara, Emerald, Ariel, Emma, Shauna, or Sheena, Arlene, Sherilyn, Radia, Bristol, NY2KS, Kat, Paula, Tiffany, Brittany, Stephanie, Gabby, Candace, Kate, Stacy, Gemma, Natasha, Valerie, Jennifer, Natalie, Maria, Kathy, Catherine, Jennifer, Shabu 323, Rebecca, Erica, Samantha, Amber, Jackie, Anna, Ray Bay, Candace, Teresa, Gretchen, Rachel, Sky, Lindsay, Chastity, Ren, Kale, Nicole, Olivia, Cheddar Cat, Regad, and Peyton. Wow. So many new members. Thank you so much for supporting the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. Keeps us ad free, and I don't have to deal with icky corporate sponsors. All right. Let's see what's up next. I am so excited. I have a very special guest with us today. Brandon Windsor, who is a writer, has written a really cool book called Good Love, a novel. And not only is the book good, because I've been reading it, it's really cute. And it comes with merch. And it's really cute. I haven't opened one piece, Brendan. I thought we'd open a piece when we're in the middle of it. But anyway, hi and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So, how did Laurie end up with a romance novel showing up on her door, Brandon? Tell us.
Well, you have been kind enough to do some really great astrology readings with my chart, and we got to know each other and became friends. And then I told you I was writing a book, and then I finished the book, and I thought, you know what? Now she needs to see the book. So you were kind enough to let me have your address, and then I sent it to you, and I'm so glad you like it.
I love it. So I don't normally talk about people I do astrology with, right? I hold confidentiality, and I have so many cool people who, no, you can talk about me all you want. I just don't blow your confidentiality. I don't get to talk about all of my client wins all the time.
Oh, wow.
So this is exciting.
This is very exciting.
I remember a couple of years ago you thinking about writing a book.
That's correct.
Do you remember that? Let's talk about that. What was going down with that?
So I'm a television writer, and we went on strike, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. You couldn't take a meeting. There's not, you could write something on your own time. But I thought, well, if I'm going to write something, why don't I really try to stretch myself? And I decided I was first going to write a film, which is also out of my wheelhouse. And then I thought, no, I'm going to write a novel. I'm just going to go for it. And I did. So when you and I were talking, I had maybe jotted down some ideas for this exact story, but I hadn't really fleshed anything out. And then it's pretty crazy. It took me 4 months to write, but it took me 5 months to edit. So that is the secret.
That's always the case, right? Yeah, nobody talks about how long an editing process takes, but it's worth it. I remember seeing creative writing in the chart. I don't remember every reading. I do, because there's a lot to remember, but I remember specifically for you, it was like, creative? You were like, well, actually, there's this thing. And I was so excited when you told me you finished, because a lot of times, I can say, hey, this is really good timing, but if people don't take action on the timing, nothing happens, right? There's a part I haven't opened yet. I want to show everybody. So first of all, I took pictures too while I was opening it. I didn't just tear it into it. I almost started tearing into it. It's like, what the hell is this box? Because of course I forgot. But it starts. Look at that. There's these cute little good love, right? Good look. Olivia Good is in love is the sticker on the box.
Because the lead character, her name is Olivia Good, so that's where the title comes from.
Right. Nicely packaged. And we're going to talk about the story here in a minute. This was in there. I haven't opened it because I invited you to be on the podcast. I was like, don't open it. Don't open it. Don't open it. Just wait. Just wait.
Well, I can't wait for you to see what it is.
Right. I wanted to have a raw reaction. Cute, cute bag. Cute, cute bag. Look at that. And you designed this, right?
Right. I designed that bag, and it has couples names from like famous rom-com films. So all of it has
so Melanie
Harry
and
Sally.
Jake, Harry and Sally, Sam and Annie. Play it again, Sam.
Yeah,
Andy
from Sleeps in Seattle.
Jenna and Matt. You can talk over me. It's okay.
Yeah. So Jenna and Matt are from 13 going on 30. There's Sandy and Danny from Grease.
Oh,
it's Edward and Vivian from 30 Woman. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
And then we have this. I'm gonna open it. You packaged everything so nicely. I don't want to mess it up. So first of all, I love. I'm that irritating person that makes everybody wait. But I love the paper. You did it. Oh my God, this is so cute. Look at this. Oh my God. That is so cute. Oh my God. To hang in the car.
Yeah.
Or a cart keychain. I love that.
Yeah, so
either way.
There's a trend right now in the fashion world where bag charms, people are putting they're hanging all this stuff from their person. And I thought I would get everybody started on that trend.
That's very good. I'm glad you announced what the fashion world is doing because I don't never pay attention to it. As we know, look at the hair. Woo, she's fly. I'm wearing a lovely hoodie. It has red on it. You just can't see it. I'm being nuts today. This is really cute. The keychain.
Thank you.
Or the bag charm. Cute.
Yeah.
Cute.
And then there's a band in the book. And so the button is a band button. Okay. The band is called Sticks and Stones. So that's what the button is.
Oh, sweet. I haven't got to that part yet. I just started reading, but it did catch my attention. And as a Gemini Venus, I love books. Like I'm a bibliophile. And I have read everything from all of Louis L'Amour as a 13-year-old to, and you're like, really? But at 13, it was fascinating. And I made my way through the Harlequins at, 11.
When I was 13, I was obsessed with Jackie Collins. I wanted to be Jackie Collins. And that's all that I read. And my parents were like, what are you reading? I'm like, shh, Hollywood Wives.
Right. Well, and there's a place for it, because you can only read so much Nietzsche. Okay. Sometimes you've got to grab some mind candy in the world right now. And I remember when we were having our conversation, I think I said it then too. Look, the world is scary. It's not getting less scary. We need escapism. That was the role Hollywood played in the 30s and the 40s, the 20s even, There's never been a time on the planet where life hasn't been scary to be a human. But the more tense it gets, the more we need something to lean into, a little bit of fantasy. And rom-coms are great for that. What caught your imagination, to make this start? How did it happen?
So for me, I have always been fascinated by the mythology of Cupid and Psyche. And so I have always wanted to write a story that was a modern take on the Cupid and Psyche story. And for people that maybe don't know what that is, it's Psyche is a mortal who is so beautiful that Venus is jealous of her. And so Venus sends her son, Cupid, to shoot Psyche with an arrow so that she'll fall in love with the beast and then go away, basically. And Cupid meets her and falls in love with her. And then, the god and the mortal being in love, it, causes a lot of problems. And so I always thought, and that story's been used. So Snow White is, magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? That is Venus and Psyche. And then Psyche has two sisters that are not very nice to her, and that's Cinderella and then Beauty and the Beast. So the story's been used a lot. And so I wanted to take a modern take on that. And I thought, well, what's modern on Cupid? That would be dating apps. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
my
Nice.
lead character, Olivia Good, is a writer, and she just got her first writing assignment, and she's going to do an investigative report on this really popular dating app. And through some misunderstanding, she ends up working there. She goes there to interview someone, but they think she's there to interview for a job. And she thinks of herself as like Gloria Steinem going undercover at the Playboy Club. So
Right.
she gets a job at this app to figure out what it is they really do to be so successful. And that's what the story's about.
I love that. Did you use any of your astrology wisdom in this book at all? Or did the astrology was it part of the road, if so to speak?
I think it was more part of the road. Like, I think that when I looked at my chart and I got the reading and you said this was a good time for that, I just went with it. I thought, okay, I'm not going to fight that or question it. I'm just going to go for it.
I
And
love
so,
that.
but I make her a Gemini in the book.
Oh, see,
So
there you
they
go.
actually bring
Okay.
that up in this thing. So yeah.
I love that. It is so cute so far. And I haven't read that far in. But that's only because I just don't get time. But I'm working on it. I did read a little bit out loud because I was like, ooh, how readable is this out loud? Because I was like, I wanted to put a little snippet of dialogue. Your dialogue, of course, you're a TV writer, and that shines through. It's very good dialogue.
I wanted it to read. I purposely intentionally wrote it so that it would read like a film. Like when you were reading it, you feel like you were watching a rom-com movie.
Very visual. Like the Mind movie, just Technicolor. You feel it almost like you're in a movie. So you achieve
that makes me so happy.
That's what I love about it, because it's one of the reasons I don't like, and I know writers love the movie contracts because it's actually good for your living. It's part of your living, and it is neat to see something realized. But I have such strong inner visuals that when I watch a book that's been made into a movie, it's almost never what I saw. But this is so right. But it's so clear. Like you're in the office, you're almost like the camera, as you're hovering over these characters, and super. Not much has done that for me in a long time. So I was very excited about that. Thank you.
That makes me feel really good. You write it, right? And you send it out there and you don't hear back. It's not like people are like, oh, I really like it. You just don't hear about it.
Right.
So it's like, it's very exciting to hear feedback. It's awesome.
Right. Well, I know how I feel like when people tell me how they feel about a video or a podcast episode, and it's like, oh, thank you. Because you're right. You do it, you create it, and off into the wind, on to the next thing. What do you really want people to know about the book? Like, if you here's your chance. What do you want?
Yeah, here's your chance. Here's the thing. I want people to, if they want a little escapism, if they kind of just want like a life palette cleanser, or like, they're even between books. Like some people read some really heavy books and you want something in between. This is fantastic for that. And it is easy to read. It's a quick read. It's really intentional in all of that. I really wanted it to be fun, like fun in a book. And so if you're looking for a little fun, this is really great. And it doesn't require, like, if you were to read some and put it down and then life got busy and then you picked it up, you would know exactly where you were. You don't have to like hold on to all of these characters and places. It's really, it's like a TV show. It's really like you just put on like an episode of Friends that you've seen before and you're like, I love this show and I've seen it 10 times,
Right. It is really a really good read. It's also really appreciate that you didn't use teeny tiny font.
Oh,
Um, anymore, I'll be like, oh, hey. But it is so engaging, and to be part of that. One of the things I love about being an astrologer is I get to help people with their cool projects, because people come and be like, okay, I had this idea.
yeah.
And I'm looking at the transit. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is the best time. And sometimes it's like, that's a really good thing and it fits with you. But now is the time to plan it. Now is the time to outline. Now is the time. But sometimes I'm like, don't second guess yourself. Yes, this is perfect timing. Go, 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 go. You've got this window to make the most of it. Doesn't mean you can't ever do it outside of it. This is where you can match the energy. And that's how I felt with you. It was like, yes, 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 go.
This is what makes your reading so great, is that you really are a cheerleader, and you really will guide you. Like, if you know what I mean, like if you're just like, okay, plan it now, start it here a little bit later down the road. It really, I mean, when I finish with you, I'm always like buzzing, like, oh wow, like, okay, you're very positive in it. Even if you're like, this isn't the right time, it's not like you're like, it's doom and gloom. You're just like, wait 3 months.
No, yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Do something in the meantime. Let it percolate. Let the muse sit on your shoulder. Let her whisper in your ear if you're a writer, or if you're doing film, or because I do I have the great benefit of having a lot of creative people come in, which is wonderful, but business wise too. It'll be like, oh, you want to launch it? This time period might be better to plan things and check your finances.
Yeah.
Something like, but I do want everybody to do well. I feel like,
yeah, I mean, well, it's
everybody
clear that you
deserves
want
that.
everyone to do well, because, or if, at least I feel like that with me, is that you are always looking for the upside and the positive part of the chart. And the transit. So, what's so fascinating is like you have a chart that's like, stagnant. And then you have these transits that move through it. And I learned all this from you. And,
Yeah, but you're doing a
you'll
great
be
job
like,
of
oh,
explaining it.
yeah, this month is really strong for this, and like, oh, this month is here. And as much as I want to like remember every bit of it, it doesn't. I like, it's just like, I don't know, it soaks in the right way, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna finish this. And I have to say, a lot of people say they want to do something, and then they get so afraid that they just don't make the step. Like, if I was so worried about perfection, I would never have written even like one page, because you're just like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, this sucks. I'm not as good as so and so. When you're like, just write the bad and then fix it.
Yeah. In the
And
editing.
so,
Yeah. Which is why it took you 5 months to edit.
Because
well, editors are worth their weight in gold always, and it takes a minute, it's the harder part, because you're like, but I like this word has to stay. How do I make that word work when I've changed this whole paragraph? Where do I keep it?
Or what I kept doing was I would drop words. So in my head, the sentence read right, but there would be missing like an and, or a little connector word, and I'd be like, how do I keep doing this? I'm a professional.
Jessica is my editor, and she has saved the magazine. Because I do this, because you're writing fast, and it's in your head. Just, what else happens? But
and it's like, it's not only like it's in your head through your fingers to the keyboard, but your ear reading it back to yourself, you hear it correctly, because you're just like, oh, yeah, that's and then you're like, no, you missed 3 words.
No, it's not there. Two months later, or a month later, or a week later, you go back and you're like, why did I write this filth? Or, oh, I really like the book, but I should write above a 3rd grade level. Gosh, I love this. You said you had some questions for me.
I do. I have a couple of questions. Okay. So now, look, I don't know if it's a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it, because I feel like I must not be the only person that's curious about this. So it's a 2-part question. So the first part is, how there's a Placidus chart and there's a whole sign house chart. Now, I know that we all read from Placidus, but when you look at people that will say like, oh, the moon, like I'm a Sagittarius rising, so it'll say, for Sag rising, the moon will be transiting your 4th house. and they're going off a whole house,
whole sign.
a
So
whole sign.
same when and that's the same when I write my horoscopes, because, and that's why I have people, like I have the little instructions for the horoscopes, right?
Yeah.
It's like read if you're 0 degrees to 15 degrees of one rising sign, read for your sign. If it's 15 degrees to 29 degrees, read for the next sign. You can read for both, because everybody in Placidus, it's locational based. There's a lot of math, but the houses can have 3 signs in them, or one sign in it. Well, I can't know that for a general audience, so I have to write a rising sign or a horoscope. I have to write that for a rising sign starting at 0. So when you write horoscopes, it's still thinking of a 0 degree start chart, period.
Right.
And it will never be as detailed as the Placidus natal chart. So
if you're doing if you want to look up your natal chart, you don't want to necessarily do the whole sign, even because it moves everything, right? It like,
well,
you know what I mean?
the
Like,
house system can move things significantly. Yeah. And I prefer Placidus. People sometimes get taught whole sign because there's a claim that it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's easier to start there and move to Placidus, because I think that's a lot of relearning. And I'll put my YouTube playlist for beginning astrology tutorials in the show notes here.
Oh, cool.
Because I walk you through making your birth chart on like astro.com or AstroSeek, and then and it kind of walks. I even have one on astrology glyphs, like explaining the glyphs, explaining the elements, introduction to transits, like what's the difference, and then a little more advanced, like what's an interception, how do you know when you're in your Saturn return, just little, these are my little gifties out on the interwebs. But yeah, so read for your rising sign, unless it's a moon sign horoscope.
Oh, okay.
Because there are people, I don't, but there are people who write moon sign. If an astrologer has put instructions for how to read their scopes, read it the way the astrologer wrote the instructions, because they have some method and logic they're using. But that's why it's different. So, and why I read for both my rising and my the next sign over. So I'll read for Scorpio and Sagittarius, because just of how my ascendant falls and knowing my own chart.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I'll be like, well, Mars is here and that house is this wide, so they're probably talking about Mars, but that's, you don't have to get that fancy. I always say but back to you. There we go. That was smooth, Brandon. This cover, and I'm going to put up a little bit of the video, even though I'm not camera ready, because I don't care. I hear it from certain people on my team. They'll be like, "Where you weren't camera ready." I'm like,
oh, just be yourself.
You know what? If Pamela Anderson could go around without makeup, I love her, by the way, and I'm so happy she's like showing up in her glory, and
she's finally getting like out of like this pigeonhole that she was in to like actually be an actress. It's great.
Yeah, and just I love that. So I'm like, if Pamela Anderson doesn't have to wear freaking makeup, me either.
That's right.
So you designed this, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the cover.
Okay, so I wanted to create something that was reminiscent of Cupid on the cover. Mm-hmm. So, and my best friend, Johnny, we've been friends for over 30 years. He is a clothing designer, and he drew me the girl, like from the neck down. And then, and the dog. So the dog is that's what my dog Bowie looks like. Aww. But this dog in the book is Capote. And so I was like, I just need like a sexy, young 26-year-old dress. Mm-hmm. And this is what he drew for me. And actually, it went through a bunch of different little changes, because of course it did. Because I'm like, no, I want this. And for Christmas, he framed all the different dresses that he made for me and gave it to me as a Christmas gift, because he's like, look at the transition of your book.
I love that. Oh, that's a beautiful gift.
Isn't that cool?
I love it. That's sweet. So
So yes, and oh, by the way, I like, just for people that, first of all, I've never written a book, and just because you can write television, writing a book is like learning another language, because when you write a script, you are not allowed to put, well, they advise against it. Putting too much emotion, or like, you can't put, what they say, direct the script. You can't say like, oh, she wiped a tear away. She did, you know, like, you let the actors act and the directors direct, and you put down the dialogue and all of that in a script. But in a book, you have to put all of that stuff in there. So it was like learning another language. So
That's, and I remember talking about that in the reading, because there is a difference between script writing, novel writing, academic writing,
yeah.
poetry. You know, there's rules for all the different kinds of writing. And I did not realize in script writing until years ago, I learned about it, but I was like, why can't you write that? That's what you're seeing in your head. That would be so hard as a writer.
Oh, I mean, well, you go to school. Well, I went to school for it, so they beat
Right.
it out of you in school. So they're like, I mean, they really are like, you're not writing at all.
Wow.
And
Wow.
but I have to tell you, the upside of that is that there's a lot of freedom. So it
Mm,
allows the actor to really attach themselves to the character, and it allows the
right.
director to really be free, because, and then when you're on set, you're talking, you're saying, well, this is what the intention of the scene is.
Oh,
And you're
okay.
like,
So you get
oh,
to
we got it.
participate. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
don't just write it and you never get to say,
But
well,
I want to tell
actually,
people, so
yeah. Mhm.
the cover I did in Illustrator, I have never even like turned on Illustrator. I don't even know how to do it. And I just winged it. And I just want people to know, you can pretty much do anything that you try to do. Like, this
Right.
whole thing in our head, that this critic that's like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought, well, I mean, how hard can this be?
I love
And
that.
I did it.
Yeah. It was perfect timing. And you
Yeah,
did it. And that's it. 90% of people fail because they don't try.
that's right. What do they
And
say?
that's it.
There's a
Mhm.
phrase, what, that try is the antidote to failing, or something, you know, like that.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
And like, you know, like,
And
it's like when you
what?
write, if you can, you can always fix a page. You can't fix a blank
Mhm.
page, right? So it's like,
Right,
write it and
exactly.
then go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, what I meant to say was this. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's a constant. Every month when I do the Awake Space Astrology magazine and my editor, Jessica, is on it, I get these notes of, did you mean to say this? Or did you mean to say that? And I'd be like, oh my God, that sentence made no sense whatsoever. I'm like, what did I mean? I have to go back and reread it. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. It's 2 a.m. Let's
And
take out that sentence.
I
But it's
feel like
true. Mhm.
we all do that to ourselves, even if we're not like
Mhm.
writing anything, like just in our
Right.
lives, we like second guess every
Absolutely.
step. And
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
you know, all that does is hurt you. And I wish
Mhm.
that my, like, if I could go back and meet my 26-year-old self, I would just be
Oh,
like,
yes.
stop, just write the damn page. It's fine. You know?
Right. I love that you keep saying the age 26, because in
Oh,
astrology, there's some stuff going on. You've got the Chiron square, Chiron, which asteroid, but
mhm.
it's tends to be a little more pronounced when we're in our 20s, because we're a little dramatic in our 20s, right?
Oh my
And
God. I
everything
was
is
very
so
much.
life and death. And I was too. I was very good at doing the fainting couch thing. Um, flopping on something. It's never gonna work. Um, because it does feel that way. It feels
Yeah.
like it's not going to be okay again and the world is over and you're going to die.
Yeah.
But there's also, it's the Saturn square. Let's see, you have your first Saturn square, second Saturn square before the Saturn return.
Mhm.
We do first position is at 14, and then 21 is the second Saturn square, or the other before the Saturn return at 28. There's some other transits that go on as well with those outer planets, and it's intense.
Yeah.
And so that usually is a time of, what the fuck am I doing?
And you know, it's crazy. Like, I mean, just to give you a little insight about me, my mother passed away. She was sick for a
Mm.
lot of
Mhm.
my young life, but she
Mhm.
passed away during my Saturn return. It was
Mm,
like, wow,
mm,
Saturn
mhm.
wasn't like, wake up.
Right? That is a sadly common happen. It doesn't mean if you're waiting for your son return, listener, it does not mean you're going to lose a parent. But I have seen it is often a time where big life events happen. People get married, they have kids, their parents pass away. And often speaking of like the Greek and Roman era, basically the Roman Greco era, a lot of times that's when you did assume the role of head of the family because somebody had keeled over. Because we didn't live as long as we do today. So you were coming into being an elder at that first Saturn return. You want to know why the world is screwed up? Go back and look at life expectancies over time and who was running things. And we had 30-year-olds making all the decisions on the planet, and they would keel over at about 35, 40, 45, maybe a venerable 50. It was kind of the opposite of where we're at, where old people who won't die are making all the decisions and keeping us stuck. So you had there's reasons that we get to expand a little. Hopefully younger people will be making decisions soon. But yeah, so oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this project, Brandon. Speaking of just trying. And it does count for everything in life, whether you want to start a business, whether you want to change careers, learn a software. And if you don't,
or just even go on a date, like, you know what I mean? Like you can be like, oh God, I'm so, what if I'm not, you know what I mean? She's like, just do it. And then here's what so by the way, I love dating. I haven't dated. I've been married for 15 years now, but like, I love dating because even when I was like, oh, this isn't going to go anywhere, I turned it into, well, let me just find out who they are. And like, and I would just interview them basically. And then I'd be like, oh, this was really great. Okay, bye. But like, instead of it being like, this is horrible. Somebody text my friend, come save me. Turn it into like, no, well, what makes you tick? Oh, you're fascinating. And I'm a writer, so I'm going to use your life story somewhere.
Right. Right, exactly. And this is now a write-off because it was work. But yeah.
Exactly. But like everything can be looked at in a positive way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it has to be in some ways where we don't get through. And it isn't toxic positivity.
No.
When we look at the bright side of things, you can still say, well, that's a pile of steaming shit, but isn't it organized in an interesting pattern?
Or what did I need to learn from this? Like, this is like the third time this has happened to me. Maybe I need to like pay attention, You're like, oh yeah.
Maybe it's like that sound. Maybe I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you there.
Okay, so the question is, you know how you can look up a transit chart? You can look it up for right now at this time. You can look it up for whatever happens on Friday, like, like whatever date you put in. Now, is there like, sometimes I'll notice on my transit chart that certain things will be at the same degree. So like I have, say, 28 degree Jupiter, and then something else will be at 28 degrees in that house, like Saturn or something. And I'll think, that's a conjunction. Is that correct?
Yes. So a conjunction is when two planets are sitting right side by side each other or on top of each other. On top would be at like exactly the same degree, the same minute. So,
or within a couple of degrees, right? You're still
up to 8 if it's a planet or a luminary. Well, so I'll sometimes give the luminaries a little more wiggle room, out to 10. It depends on what's going on though. If it's a node, because we have the nodes moving into Pisces, we only use a 2-degree orb because the node is it's not an actual object. It's a math calculation and it sheds no light. Fixed stars also, we don't use wide orbs. We use like between a 1 degree and a 2.3. It gets very technical on the orbs. So an orb is the distance between two planets or bodies. So yeah.
When you see like a conjunction in your chart, that's not necessarily negative though, right? I mean, or is it something
conjunctions can kind of go one way or the other. Think of it as being intense. Okay. So how does that energy work together? I'm not a big fan of this is good and this is bad. Yeah. Because dichotomous thinking kind of holds us back. And it will make people not try. So if you think back to some of the hardest times of your life, they were the catalyst for something else.
Always. Yes. Always something great, by the way. If you look back, you'll be like, oh my God, that was a great thing that happened. even though I was
Right.
crying on the
Yeah.
floor when it was happening.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we don't tend to take a lot of action when everything is rosy because we're enjoying the rosy, and that's great. Those times happen, hopefully. If we pay attention and notice them. So with a conjunction, depending on what planets are involved. So that's the other thing. I get kind of annoyed with pop astrology because it'll be like, this is good, this is bad. I'm like, it all depends. People get mad when I say,
Yeah.
well, it depends, because it does depend. If you've got Venus conjunct Neptune, that's a very powerful magical energy where it's kind of like use your imagination as ridiculous as you can get it, and crazy things can be drawn to you. But right now we've got Venus conjunct Saturn happening. That's the episode here. So how perfect, because they're in Pisces, how perfect for talking about love and romance and taking a vision and realizing it. So the vision would be the Venus in Pisces, letting your muse sit on your shoulder. And the Saturn would be the realization of the vision in a book, because Saturn isn't just restriction. Saturn is also realization, manifestation. We wouldn't be physical without Saturn. So when I say you're a slice of time and space crystallized into physical form, the crystallization into physical form is actually Saturn. So everybody who gets scared about Saturn, like Saturn's literally why you're a physical being.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That's
so,
really cool.
To answer your question, it's not always good. It's not always bad. Again, if it's Saturn conjunct Pluto, you're going to be changing, but it's probably not your favorite time of life because it's intense. But if you make it through it, you've really, you've accelerated your maturity. You've shown up. You might have a few scars, but you know, chicks dig scars and glory lasts forever, right?
It's true.
Except it's a movie line. I can't remember. Keanu Reeves was in that movie. He was like a football player. I can't remember what it was called, but somebody got hurt and he was like, chicks dig scars and glory lasts forever. And I just
sounds like a Keanu line.
Dumb line. It is a good Keanu line because he's like the least tough person on the planet.
Yeah, he's so like soft and sensitive, which is a wonderful quality to have.
It is a beautiful quality, but it was weird to watch him be a football player. He did it very well. He's a good actor, but it was just like, really? That's not where I would have envisioned you. But yeah, that's where we get those scars that make us interesting. We're not meant to be perfect and flawless and perfectly coiffed and, you know, in stormy weather. You know, it's okay to get dirty and grimy.
And be makeup free.
Yeah, and being makeup free, which is great. Yeah. So questions. Gosh, for marketing. Speaking of.
Yes.
When people say I'm not good at marketing is storytelling. Marketing is connecting with people and sharing the things that we love. Now is a good time to do your marketing.
Okay. I'm making some really cringy TikTok videos, but I'm doing it anyway. And I'm just like, okay.
Do it. Absolutely.
Thank you for my 30 views.
Save all of them. Right? Well, save them because it takes time, right? It takes time. And TikTok, you know, the Supreme Court just
I did see that today. Yeah.
So I think we're going dark on Sunday. I bet we do. Because TikTok said they would. But we'll see. Maybe they made an agreement with the dumpster fire. Yeah.
Oh, so well, you know, he'll take a $1 million donation and then, you know, maybe that's all he needs.
Yeah. And rules no longer apply. But don't worry, listeners. There's crazy shit coming up between now and April, so we'll just see what happens. It's a wild time on the planet. But for marketing, this is marketing. Us having this conversation. You know, and I want listeners to pay attention. Right? Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
Right? So we can find you on Instagram, TikTok if it comes back. If it doesn't go, we don't know. It is kind of nebulous energy right now. But so Instagram, TikTok, Where else?
We are on Instagram it's Good Love Novel. So I'm Good Love Novel
Okay.
on TikTok and on
Okay.
Instagram. I also have a
Great.
website called goodlovenovel.com.
Awesome.
And I try to
.com.
brand it all. And then
Mm-hmm.
but if you like the book, you just want to get the book, it's on Amazon, make it simple. You get free shipping most likely
Mm-hmm.
if you have that. So hey, save yourself some money.
Right. There you
But if you
go.
like
I
all the
love
stuff
it.
that Laurie talked about, that all comes from the web.
Did. It is so cute. I love this. Love this. I love it. A bag charm. Love it. I love hearts.
I like
I've
hearts
always
too.
been like, since I was a little girl, the hand heart is like the best. So, and the bag. I love the bag. Like, I grinned and giggled so much when I saw this. It's so cool to see it alive because I remember you were like, and I'm designing merch. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my God, that's so cool. I love that you're doing that. That was so fun. So I'll get every show notes because that's essential. People click on those links.
I appreciate it.
Brandon, yeah. So are you looking at doing anything like at bookstores, or like is there like a local that you've thought about, like you see if you do a book signing, or what are your hopes for this?
Well, my hopes are that I can get enough attention where a traditional publisher would pick it up.
Hmm.
Not, because that just seems like that would be the easiest way for me to do it. Not easy, like I don't want to work hard, but it just seems like that is the world I'm already working in. So it would make sense that
Hmm.
it would all work together that way. Um,
Hmm.
but there is there's like a book event coming up in June. Well, it's not till June, but we'll have to talk about that in June. But I got invited to that, so that's exciting. So hey, maybe between now and June I'll get
That's
enough
exciting,
like people interested, and then it
right?
will, maybe I'll be able to go to a couple of book places and get my book out there.
So,
Yeah.
for our listeners, because I do
Mhm.
have a class coming up on the 25th
Mhm.
called How to Find Your Psychic Using Astrology, and we're going to talk a little bit about marketing in that class. So this is kind of like a segue. Um that you got to have a way for your audience to like interact with you and play with you.
Mhm.
And so I would highly suggest having like a way to have conversations around the characters, like besides what I was talking about earlier before we started, like have the dog be a
Yeah.
character that's talking and getting interaction.
So yeah,
That's
I
what's
I
going to
mean, I
grow
would love to
you,
talk to
whether
everybody,
you're
like, Mhm.
yeah, is talking about like, but even giving, like, you've got Valentine's Day coming up. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Oh, I've been trying to sell it
This
as a
is like,
Valentine thing. I think, yeah.
right?
This is
Yeah. So I would have like the dog give dating advice, and I would have Olivia give dating advice. Like, I would have, yeah. So that's why I'm a hype person. I love everybody doing well. I'm like, I just want you to make money. I just want you to be happy. I want you to be fulfilled. I want people to read your book. I
Yeah.
love people being happy because I am an empath and I feel it when people aren't. So it's selfish of me going, please be happy. Please,
I need to
please
feel
be
happy
happy.
too. Yeah.
I need to feel happy. You need to be happy. So don't make me make you. But no, I'm kidding. But yeah, so everybody needs to go find this because I'm a book snob. I really am. We talked about that before we recorded because I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this. It's such a good book. You're like, wow, I thought you were just going to be nice to me.
Yeah, no, because I got that you were a book snob, and I thought, oh no, it's like I even tried to like preface it when I was telling her, but like it's a light rom com, like, and you're like, no, it's really really good. I'm like, oh good, I'm glad. And like I
Yeah,
said,
no, yeah,
it reads like a film, like it reads like you're watching a film.
it
So
does. It
it's
does.
it's fun. It's like I feel like I keep saying that it's not like clear enough. You know what I mean? But it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It is a lot of fun, and it's very it's bubblegum but smart. It's smart timing. It's like a
Yeah.
good rom-com is smart. Like, people make fun of them, but they're actually really hard to do,
Yeah. Yeah, it's all
you
comic
know,
timing
to do
in
well.
all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
I think
that
drama's kind of easy, you know,
it is sort of
like
easy
not
because
that.
you just put a twist and a
Yeah.
turn in, and you're like, "Oh,
Hmm.
look, I made a twist," and now you're like, "Wow!" This
Yeah.
requires a
You kill
lot
the
of
love of their
restraint.
life. Yeah, yeah. You can't kill the love of their life in a rom-com
No.
to move the
And you really
story
can't make the
forward,
stakes
unless
too
the
high.
person dies funny.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
Taking a
it's like
selfie.
hit by a bus, like Mean Girls.
Right?
So yeah, I'm really excited for people to like embrace this book, because I think
Yeah.
regardless of like, oh, I want to sell it like money wise, don't that is important, but I'm just
No.
saying there's
Yeah.
something super exciting about your work being embraced, you know,
Yes. When
and
somebody's
that's
holding
what
your
I like.
baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Oh, before we end,
yeah.
I don't think I have your chart up. But what's your Venus?
My
Because I
Venus
don't have
is
everybody's room.
Aries. I'm an Aries Venus.
Aries. Oh,
Mhm.
I love that. And then Mars.
My Mars is Aquarius.
Right. That's great energy together. So that
Oh,
quirky learning restraint would have been kind of hard because you're kind of an all in person with that
yes.
Venus and Aries. When you love, you love. When you hate, you're like, you know, um,
I
you
mean,
know what you want.
I really like it was hard. I'll be honest with you. The beginning of writing this, probably the first, I don't know, 150 pages were really difficult, because I was like,
Hmm.
I just want it to be like, boom. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, you
Right.
have to do it this way. And I'm really grateful that it turned out the way
Hmm.
that it turned out.
I love that. And now your Mercury and your Sun.
So my Mercury is in Aquarius, my Sun is Pisces, my Moon is also Pisces, and my
Hmm.
Jupiter is Pisces. I'm a lot of Pisces.
That's right. I knew you had a lot of Pisces, right? And so you've got, Jupiter in Gemini right now. It was kind of squaring off a little bit there. This is a good time to break through some of the conventions, okay, that you're going through. And then Saturn being in Pisces, this is a good time to get that creative discipline down. Um, the nodes are coming in.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. That's a little
That's like
window of kismet coming in to
I,
play.
I'm so excited for this,
Hmm.
because
Go back like
the
19 years. You'll
oh,
have a
okay.
clue.
All
Hmm.
right. Well,
Hmm.
yeah. I think I had a nice little career bump 19 years ago. So maybe I'd like another career bump.
Boom. See,
Yeah.
look at that. All right. Yeah. No, there's the amount of Pisces energy.
Mhm.
Like what you've got Neptune in there. I think that helped with the cinematic stuff going on there too. You've got good
I'm
transits for this. I'm
I'm
excited.
really excited. This is a good year for me. I can feel that it's a good year for me.
Hmm. 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 Isn't that nice when that happens?
Oh my gosh, because it was not a good year a couple of years ago. And so it's nice that it's
No, I
finally like
know. Yeah.
evening out. You know what I mean? It's great. Like
Hmm.
it, you know, it just think if the strike hadn't happened, I wouldn't have written this book. And I'm so proud
Right.
of this book. But when the strike was going
Hmm.
on, there I was crying on the floor, like, oh, my life. And then it's like,
Right.
this is wonderful. But it
It
takes some
is
time to
wonderful. I
look
love
back
it.
at it and go, this was great. I'm glad that happened.
Right? Absolutely. And it does take time because when we're in the middle of it, it's not the time to try to, when you're in the middle of the feelings,
Yeah.
it is not the time to try to like find the silver linings because it's not going to be like, I don't care. Just
And you
feel
gave
it
me
in the
some like
moment.
advice. You're like, when you're like on the picket line, try to like hit up. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not talking to anybody on the picket line. My life is over. And then this ended up being great.
Well, yeah, it's trying to give people a little bit of movement, even in a hard time,
Yeah.
to navigate that energy is my goal. And I don't often have times. I've had a few clients in the last few years where it was their turn to go through the mud,
Yeah.
and all I can do is say it will be over here. This you've got this long to go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be crunchy. Do this, this, and this. Get a therapist. That will help you the most. And, it doesn't mean you're crazy, but it'll stop you from going crazy. And, and it will pass, but it's going to pass like a kidney stone or three. So it's, it's very rare, because you know me, I'm upbeat, but once in a while
Yeah.
when it's really serious and they're making big, scary life changes too. And that's so brave. And I just tell them, you're brave. You're just brave, So luckily it's very, very rare. And most times I get to just help people reframe where they're at, like we did, and encourage you. And I'm always excited when somebody has done what they said they wanted to do, because
Thank
you
you.
did. The most wonderful feeling in the world is to hold a book you've written in your hands.
Can I just tell you, it is one of the greatest feelings. I did not know that that
Mm-hmm.
would feel that way, and it's really awesome.
To
It's
see your
pretty phenomenal.
name. It's
Yeah.
like holding a baby, and it doesn't get old.
Oh,
It
good.
doesn't get old. I've written several books and it never gets old. None of them have
Well,
to do with astrology yet. I have to
oh,
turn things into books, but in my available time. But yeah, that's the other thing, when you have available time. So now that we don't have TikTok, maybe I'll get a book written.
yeah.
It's a time suck. TikTok's a time suck.
Well, it's so difficult 'cause it's like, you have to post so many times a day and blah, 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 and it's like, I have a life too, you know? It's like, this is
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
Mm,
That's why for the
yeah.
last 2 years, I've focused on this podcast because it's more gratifying and I'm excited. And so, marketing wise, just get out there and create. And
Okay.
everybody, you want to check this book out because Brandon is a wonderful person, great writer, really good writer. And
Thank you.
that it doesn't matter that it's a light and fun book and it's not an existential critique of life in, the 17th century. It's we need light, we need fantasy, we need fun,
Yeah.
and it is very movie like when you're reading it. I could almost like it's almost like the camera is moving around. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
very visual book, and that's very cool. So thank
Thank you.
you. We'll have you back before June.
Okay.
Just
That
get a
sounds
hold of me
awesome.
for the book thing. That'll be
Okay.
exciting. I'm all for it. We're going to have more people who have read with me come on the show. That
Oh,
was
that's
already in my
exciting.
plans, so this was perfect timing.
This is awesome. I
So,
can't wait to hear about those
right?
people. Yeah.
Right?
Well,
And celebrate. Oh, so many, my gosh, you guys are talented and what we call world servers, people who just want to make the world a better place. And whether it's through laughter or even fashion, or there's so many ways to be a physical, spiritual being. So thank you, Brandon.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. That was a great interview with Brandon, wasn't it? You can find his book, Good Love, a novel, at goodlovenovel.com. Great story. It's super fun. I've really been enjoying reading it, and Brandon is always a great pleasure to have on the show. All right, coming up next, we're going to wind up the show and talk about some strategies to take you through the week. So we know that TikTok went dark and then it came back and it was a little glitchy and the live streams were blah blah blah. I really feel kind of complete with TikTok. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my account. It's not because what the reality we see right now isn't what people wanted to see. People who've listened to my podcast, I've worked through the astrology. I said for years and years and years, people needed to be involved at their county and state level because the election commissions are actually done at a county and states govern their own election process. That's not governed by the federal government. And the people who really follow me and have listened, God bless you. Okay. But I've always wanted to help people manage through these turbulent times. It's, as I said on my last TikTok live, and I think it really is my last one. I might put up some content, probably mostly clips from the podcast. Um, you know, it's not going to get better anytime soon. It wouldn't have mattered which administration because it didn't flip the house. Like you didn't flip the house, and the stuff wasn't taken care of in the States. So there we go. Here comes fascism. And actually, it's been here since the early 2000s. Okay. So I'm glad people have finally noticed. Um, so I want to talk about more about the energy. And one of the things I was talking about on one of my live streams for free patrons and for my paid patrons, because I've been doing a lot of audio live streams in my supporting patron chats, which is hard enough to moderate when things are hectic. So I'm not going to open up free chats. I'm not. It's too much work for my mods to keep the regular chat, and I don't want to wear out my mods. So, um, and to the person who said they just got crumbs in the free Patreon, leave. Okay, there's more stuff coming. I am one woman who creates a lot. Okay, so this podcast is sponsored by my patrons. This doesn't cost you to listen to. Okay, I don't charge you for this. It's good entertainment. It's giving. Today I made sure it was nice and long to help you kind of dissociate your way through the day. Um, but there's more information coming, and I'll probably go live once a week for an all patron event, both free and paid. But I am going to give my attention to my patrons. You know, we did Cosmic Surfers on Sunday. Astrology Crew, the Astro Crew, is meeting up next week. Super excited. The class I'm teaching, how to find your side gig using your astrology, that happens next week. If you're a patron, you get a special discount on that. So make sure you check the membership discounts collection. Let's see. I'm looking for my Project Gutenberg. Where'd it go? I have too many tabs open. So the thing about The Art of War by Sun Tzu, since we're everybody's moved over to Redbook, the Chinese app. Let's look at a very ancient document. So this is verse 29. I'm trying to I like this one. A whole army may be robbed of its spirit. In war, says Cheng Yu, if a spirit of anger can be made to pervade all ranks of an army at one and the same time, its onset will be irresistible. Now, the spirit of the enemy's soldiers will be keenest when they have newly arrived on the scene, and that is therefore our cue not to fight at once, but to wait until their ardor and enthusiasm have worn off and then strike. It is the way that they may be robbed of their keen spirit. Li Chuan and others tell of an anecdote to be found in the Tso Chuan, year 10, and Sao Kui, I'm probably butchering that, a protege of Duke Chuan of Lu, of a latter state, was attacked by Qi, and the Duke was about to join the battle at Changshou. After the first roll of the enemy's drums, when Cao said, "Not just yet," only after the drums had beaten for the third time did he give the word for attack. Then they fought, and the men of Qi were utterly defeated. Questioned afterwards by the Duke as to the meaning of his delay, Cao Kei or Kei? Kei? I don't know. Somebody will have to correct me, replied, "In battle, a courageous spirit is everything. Now, the first roll of the drum tends to create the spirit. With the second, it is already on the wane, and after the third, it is gone together, altogether. I attacked when their spirit was gone and ours was at its height. Hence, our victory." In chapter 4, put spirit first among the 4 important influences in war, and continues, The value of the whole army, a mighty host of 1,000,000 men, is dependent upon one man alone. Such is the influence of spirit. Clever general, therefore, avoids an army when its spirit is keen, but attacks it when it is sluggish and inclined to return. That is the art of studying moods. Disciplined and calm to await the appearance of disorder and hubbub against the enemy. This is the art of retaining self possession. To be near the goal while the enemy is still far from it, to wait at ease while the enemy is toiling and struggling, to be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is the art of husbanding one's strength. To refrain from intercepting an enemy whose banners are in perfect order, to refrain from attacking an army drawn up in calm and confident array. This is the art of studying circumstances. It is a military axiom not to advance uphill against the enemy, nor to oppose him when he comes downhill. Do not pursue an enemy who simulates flight. Do not attack soldiers whose temper is keen. Do not swallow a bait offered by the enemy. Do not interfere with an army that is returning home. When you surround an army, leave an outlet free. Do not press a desperate foe too hard. Such is the art of war. Obviously, I didn't read the complete thing, and you can find that on Project Gutenberg. What I wanted to emphasize by reading some of those chapters, it's more it's hard to describe. It's a really, really old book, so it's like reading a religious text almost because it's written in chapter and verse. And that's why I keep telling you, don't let the media manipulate you. Okay, especially with all the Pisces energy we got going on right now. Booze, come on. It is so easy to whip people up into a frenzy. It is so easy for us to imagine, and our imaginations are very keen with Neptune direct in Pisces and Venus and Saturn conjunct in Pisces, that it is that which you can envision that gathers strength. One of the reasons people like He Who Shall Not Be Named utilize such egregious language is to whip you into a frenzy, and that drains your spirit. That makes you vulnerable and easy to conquer, because eventually you lose your spirit. You lean into despair. You don't have the momentum behind you. That's why saying calm and clear and present in the moment makes you the most dangerous of all. And that is why billions of dollars are spent disrupting your consciousness. This is one of the reasons that I have been teaching how to hold your consciousness. So what do you do when everything looks lost? What do you do when it is apparently the end of something that mattered to you, whether it's a marriage, a political situation, um, family matter, an end of an era, right? You have to focus on where you're going next. You have to focus on what matters now. Luxuriating in the misery, luxuriating in the pain, luxuriating in the despair, the depression, whatever it is. And I'm not saying those are not valid feelings, but if you rest in them and steep in them, you are not able to take good forward action. Every single person that is somewhat more in the know than any of us has said one thing: find your community. Don't just rally together as an opposition force. You need to gather together to look how you can meet each other's needs, not just seek aid. Keep yourself calm. Learn how to self-soothe. Great ways to do that: cooking, knitting, crochet, sewing, yoga, gardening. I know it's cold, so finding indoor active, folding laundry. Okay, something repetitive that you have to concentrate just a little bit on. That's why I say fold your socks, clear out the sock drawer, declutter your house, um, go help at a food pantry. One of the things people will ask me is, Laurie, how do you stay so calm in these chaotic situations? And well, I'm serving. I'm thinking beyond myself. I'm thinking about other people. I'm showing up knowing that people are feeling that life is in chaos and disarray. I come in with the intention to soothe, to help you find your own ground. That's how I stay calm, because when you're serving other people, doesn't mean you forget yourself, although sometimes I forget to do my laundry. I got it done today. Well, Sunday. In between teaching, go figure. But when you come from a place of service, you don't have time to despair. Okay. Don't panic. That makes you pray. It makes you vulnerable. Every metaphysician has been saying the same thing. Wait and watch how things unfold. If you do not have the power to change something, if you do not have the power to make something happen, put your focus on things you do have power over. That's how you get through interesting times. I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope you feel inspired. I hope this has helped you find some ease. And I look forward to talking to you next week when we talk about the Lunar New Year and the new moon in Aquarius. And yeah, it's 2025. So it's a doozy. So I'll see you next Monday.